Hi there. Welcome to the Financial Advantage podcast powered by the Wells Funding Group. This is Dennis Wells. Thank you for joining me today. Super excited to be here, joined today by Erik Roberts, Realtor, musician, entrepreneur out of the Chicago area. Erik, thank you so much for joining us today.
And thank you so much. I appreciate it. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Very cool. So as we get started, how did you get started in the real estate business?
Well, it's kind of a long story, but I'll try to shorten it. My background primarily was in education. I used to work for the Cook County Sheriff's Department, actually, and I taught violence prevention to kids in schools throughout Cook County, Illinois. Um, and while I was doing that, I had different roles, and one of my roles that ended up being working inside of the jail itself, the Cook County Jail. And I was teaching different programs there to some of the detainees. So I was teaching literacy programs. We had, mental health classes. We had male mentoring groups, and one of them was a adult education or GED type course. And the way I got into real estate, believe it or not, was inspired by those students that I work with, because I kind of made a deal with them, like, for every time you guys correctly solve the volume of a cylinder or pass your test on history, I'll teach you something you really want to know. And they picked primarily financial literacy things. They wanted to learn business development, like how to start LLCs and non-for-profits.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to learn, the basics of things like stocks and crypto, and they wanted to learn about real estate. They had heard and researched a little and found that real estate might be a good thing to get invested in and learn about. And so I took a real estate class in part to teach them, and the rest was history.
It's amazing how when you help other people, you end up getting helped yourself. And I found it fascinating. We were talking about that before. You know just the hunger that people have for financial literacy, understanding how money works, understanding how real estate works. It's pretty much universal. It seems like.
Yeah, I think so, and I think there's a need for it, especially in minorities and particularly in Black American community, where people are aware, because we're in the information and technology area. People are aware that something like home ownership is one of the most consistent paths to gaining any wealth as a family, and also stabilizing your life, because
Mhm.
when you're renting, your rent may go up $100 every year, or in some cases every month, depending on where you live. And that could be the difference between being able to live there again or not. And some places it's jumping $500 and fees are changing. So, having that stabilized fee that, having a mortgage can bring, and, also all of the other benefits like gaining equity, are just things that a lot of people were curious about, want to learn about, and realize that it's a path forward for them and their families to gain wealth.
Yep. Yeah, and the opportunity for real estate in particular to help people transform their family tree. Like you're saying, it provides them stability. They have a place to grow roots. They have something that that they're investing in, but is going to be able to provide for them as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important, and I think it's also important, for me, with that background in education, and in education, people think it's all about like what you're teaching people. Education for is really about what you're learning,
Hmm.
because the best teachers, they figure out how to talk to you specifically.
Yeah.
And they do that by listening. They do that by studying, by paying attention, by trial and error and testing. It's not just lecture like, hey, listen to me. So I learned just as much from those guys as I could have from any, that they learned from me.
Hmm.
And many of their questions, many of their assumptions, fears, whatever, are the same type of questions that I'm answering for upper middle class families trying to buy, a
Right.
$500,000 home. It's like a universal thing. Doesn't matter who you are, what situation you're in. What you don't know is what you don't know, but it becomes power when you understand it, and then it becomes excitement when you actually obtain it.
Yeah. Yeah. And we talked about that, how incredible it is that you know how to balance a checkbook,
Yeah,
financial literacy, real estate. Those are the things that aren't so much taught in high school, but those are the practical, real life things that can make a huge difference in someone's life. I mean, not that, having an understanding of history or having an understanding of science or mathematics, there's importance there, but like on that practical level of, how do I function in the world? How do I create wealth? Is something that, I think by and large is lacking in, a lot of educational systems.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, a lot of information is gate kept and is funneled,
Mhm.
interests of some, but I think it's in the benefit of all of us that people next to us and around us are more stable
Yep.
because if you want to live in a safe community in a safe environment, it's a lot more safe when everybody there has a job and
Hmm.
everybody there has access to good education and good health care, and they don't have the reasons to go down the paths that could lead to things becoming bad.
Yep.
Um, that starts with education. That
Yep.
starts with teaching people just like we teach kids, hey, don't hit someone just because you're angry. You got to talk to your feelings. Well,
Hmm.
we got to talk just as much about, hey, here's a dollar, here's what it means.
Right.
Here's what it means when it's gone. Here's what it means when you have two. Like we got to
Yep.
spend just as much time enforcing these nuances that will make these complicated subjects become second language to the next generation.
100%. 100%. So, in the real estate, what's been the impact of, your background in education and your educational experience teaching people? How does that roll into, as Erik Roberts as a real estate agent?
Yeah, man. So truthfully, I was kind of relieved thinking, hey, I'm finally going to like do something that's different than social work. Like, because anybody who's in if you're a school teacher, a counselor, even a coach, you know there's a lot more behind the scenes and a lot of it that you don't get paid for, and a lot of it you don't even acknowledge for to get the results when you're working with, whether they're young or older people.
Mhm.
So I thought, like, I'm gonna go into something different. It's sales, it's real estate, it's investment, I can wear a suit. But at the end of the day, the most important skill I have is can I be a relatable and approachable no matter who I'm talking to? Because clients come from all over. As a loan officer, you may have somebody that you refer and you're thinking of which agent that you can get them to work with. You're going to pick the one that's reliable, but you're also going to pick the one that's going to make sure they're on top of it and it can explain to them everything they need to know. So you have to be on your toes to talk to kids.
Mhm.
You talk to a 12-year-old, you can do anything in the world, you know what I mean? So you got to be on your toes, you got to be organized. And that kind of just translates to the same world, where it's so much going on and people
Mhm.
have, anxiety, or there's different people with different opinions, and your job is to be like, all
Mhm.
right, focus here. Here's
Yep.
step
Yep.
here's step two. Here's step three. No, they're like, oh, I'm gonna ask you so many questions. No, it's okay. Just keep asking me till you feel like you get it. It's
Right.
it's virtually the same thing.
Mhm.
If you're doing this job well, the people that are working with you are going to leave not only with keys, but understanding of what they just did. Here's
Mhm.
here's the overall path. If you do this right.
Yep. Yeah, I think the greatest compliment we can receive, the real estate side, lending side, is that they made the process understandable. They
Yeah.
they made the process, not only smooth, but I understood what was going on.
Yeah.
And I tell people all the time, if I wasn't in this business, doing this every day, if you weren't in this business doing this every day, we would have the same questions that everybody else has. And people are like, "Oh, I think it's a dumb question." It's like, it's not a dumb question. If you don't know, if you don't understand,
Yeah.
that's part of our responsibility, is to make sure that you do, understand what's going on and that you feel comfortable, with the process.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing you can do is you just provide, a walking guy. I'm your personal assistant through this. I'm not just a person, I'm not just a realtor. Like, let's take that off. I'm Erik. I'm here. I'm with
Mhm.
you. We're figuring this out together. So I'm going to take my knowledge and my expertise and I'm going to help you navigate this. But everybody has the same questions. It doesn't, even if
Right.
they've bought a house before, it's like it was 10 years ago and it was a different company, and now and it's
Yeah.
a different time. And now we're going through this again, and you still have questions. So I think getting people, disarming people of the fear of not wanting to be embarrassed, or not wanting to sound dumb or silly
Yeah.
for asking questions. I think that stops a lot of people in the beginning, just
Hmm.
who've always wanted to, or could have bought or could own homes, have been crippled because of fear of not wanting to seem like they don't know what they're doing. And if you're, a good loan officer, a good realtor, your job is to take that away.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, do you see yourself? Do you see yourself as an entrepreneur? And if you do, um, what does entrepreneurship mean to you?
Um, I didn't see myself that way, but I think it just became what made sense for me in so many ways. Um, my first entrepreneur, as you mentioned earlier, is also being a recording artist by the name of Psychosis. And as a recording artist, doesn't matter what genre you're in, the first thing you're still dealing with fear. Like the first thing is like, let me even go up here and see if I can play an instrument or sing a note or, rhyme on beat, whatever it is you're doing. And then you got to work up enough courage to record it. And then even worse, work up enough courage to perform it.
Hmm.
But then a lot of artists, independent artists, they hit a roadblock of like, okay, now how do I get anybody besides my mom who's trying to talk me out of this? And my girlfriend who's halfway impressed, how do I get anybody else to hear this?
Right.
So my entrepreneur journey kind of started there, figuring out that just like real estate has changed, the music business has changed quite a bit, but figuring out how I can use tools to, not wait on anybody else to come, discover me, but just figure out ways I can do as much as I can by myself.
Hmm.
And that spirit has translated over into everything I do, right? So I'm here to learn, I want to know, but at a certain point, my superhero mode will kick in. I'm like, I can do that.
Right. Right.
I'll figure that out. And sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. But right now, it's also helping me besides music, as an entrepreneur in real estate. I'll become what some would call a developer,
Yep.
and helping redevelop or renovate homes. Um, it also helps me become a teacher to people who want to do that, right? Because
Hmm.
I think a lot of us see ourselves like, man, I wish I could just leave my job and work for myself. And it ain't as easy as it sounds.
Right.
But if you can be an example, like, all right, well, if you're serious about it, I can tell you what I did. You become a
Hmm.
resource to them. So I think it translates over because one, I can say I've done these things, and two, I can also talk to people about how they can do it and get started, which I've been
Hmm.
able, many
Yeah.
investors do.
Nope. I love it. I love it. And what areas are you looking at right now in, doing the reinvestment and helping to transform communities?
So right now I'm actually in my Coldwell Banker office in Sherrville. And our Sherrville office is one of the top offices in Northwest Indiana. And one of our top cities is actually Gary, Indiana. So I like to say I had a little bit to do with that. Because I think I'm not sure which genius said it, but what we're actually doing is we're solving problems, right?
Yep.
And everybody has a money problem, right? And no matter how much money you have, it's like, what do I do with the money, or is it enough money, right? We all have a money problem. And I think in real estate, your job, or loan officer's job is like, okay, let's figure out what you can afford.
Hmm.
And my job is to go, all right, where on this map does that thing exist? So Gary, Indiana has been a place where a lot of first-time home buyers who, well, in my experience, they're kind of skipping that starter home. People are kind of trying to go right to I want to live here forever. I ain't moving anymore. So people aren't really looking for like the one bed, two bed, 900 square foot house like I did. People
Hmm.
want, give me a three bed, two bed, two bath, two car garage, 6,000 square feet yard. They want to go to an established, and they want it all new. And
Hmm.
Gary is one of the places that those price points and those houses
Hmm.
work for the buyer and the investor.
Right.
But I've also worked in other cities like Hammond, that's nearby, Cedar Lake, that's in Northwest Indiana. So All over Northwest Indiana and particularly Lake County, there's a lot of movement right now, and it's a good place for buyers and investors to consider.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it is exciting to see areas, get the attention that they need to be transformed.
Yeah.
Um, because I know the history of Gary, and it's been really amazing.
Mhm.
And it's kind of fallen on some hard times, but seeing, you know, what I'm seeing investors doing in the area, and reinvesting to really transform a whole community.
Yeah, I think it's a unique opportunity. And I say this being somebody originally from the South Side of Chicago. Um, Gary was a place that always just had a very negative stigma. It was like, why would
Hmm.
you Gary? Don't even go there. Like, why would you even look at it? Um, and a lot of that just had to do with ignorance, and not knowing. People don't know that Gary has a borderline with Lake Michigan, and it's one of the nicest, cleanest beaches in the beginning of the Indiana Dunes, or that you have national parks. People aren't aware that Gary has commuter rails, the South Shoreline train, that it has access to I-90, I-80, I-65. So you got three major interstates, and you got universities. So there's all of this stuff here that
Hmm.
once a really big bustling city, and now it's a land, and it's been reduced. I was in a town hall meeting actually just a week ago with the mayor and the director of redevelopment, Chris Harris, and they were talking about how Gary has been reduced to a population of about 2,500 people after a city as big as 50,000 or more. So what that actually means is there's a lot of available space to redevelop.
Hmm.
Not a whole lot of people, because people first thought it was like crime, and I was like, well, to be honest with you, you won't even have neighbors in some places that you go, or the people that are there are people that have been there for 30 years.
Right.
So these aren't the people you're worried about. They're happy you're coming in. You're happy that they're there because they'll be looking out. And that's the experience I've had with most of my buyers. They've
Hmm.
come in, some of them with a stigma, and then leave like, wow, that was way better than my other option that would have
Yeah.
bought me a fixer upper that I would have still had to spend money on.
Yeah. No,
Mm,
I love it. So you mentioned your music career.
sure.
You're still doing some things to help newer artists
Yeah.
to get going.
Yeah. So my one of my partners, he goes by the homie Chris. He and I are gonna be releasing an album called The Sweet on September 17th. So I have to plug that. But
There we
in
go.
addition to that, um I'm working with a program called Builders and Backers, and a team of close friends of mine that are both artists and producers. We're working on a special project that'll just kind of help bring resources, as I was mentioning earlier, those barriers of entry. Like somebody might be amazingly talented, but they don't have $1 million company behind them, or they're not even in a position to try to go to LA to audition for LA. It's not realistic for them.
Right.
Um, but luckily, due to the internet, you can be a celebrity where you are now because we all have
Hmm.
access to the internet. So resources and also financial literacy is a lot of what we're building, because we've all heard stories of our favorite musicians and somehow they ended up poor, and somehow their estate was lost, and they sold millions of records but somehow the money was lost. That's financial literacy, right? That's the contracts
Right.
just we're doing. So a lot of that, there's nowhere you can go to learn that either.
Hmm.
And so I share my experience and my knowledge, and try to help as much as I can.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast here today. I'm sure that there's a lot of people that love to get a hold of you. You got a great story. What's the best way for people to get in contact with you?
Sure. If you're looking for, conversations about real estate, I would say you can find out anything you need to know on my website, which is myhomeisready.com. You can reach out to me by phone, 708-439-0827. I got a feeling I'm gonna regret that later, but that's my number. And then on social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I have a TikTok called Rap in Real Estate, where you can follow me as we do some of these redevelopment projects, or you can see some of these homes I'm touring for you in places or cities you've never seen, or just to get a sense of what these neighborhoods look like if you want to see it on the ground level. So you can follow me on most social media at Erik Roberts Realtor. rap and real estate. Or if you want to check out the music, it's at Psychosis, which is SYCOSIS. And as I mentioned, Psychosis and the homie Chris, the sweep coming out September 17th. Yeah.
Love it. Be sure to check it out. Spotify, all the
Spotify,
streaming.
Apple Music, yeah, all the streaming platforms. And on that note, one of the things, if there's anybody who is in music listening, one of the things that I love to talk to artists about, some call sync licensing, and that's how you get music and television and film. So a lot of my social media pages, I talk about that for artists, and it's a way to get revenue, which is financial literacy, like we talk about.
Love it. Love it. Well, thank you so much, Erik. Thanks for being a part of it. Thank you all for listening to the Financial Advantage powered by the Wells Funding Group. You can reach myself and the team at our number 219-230-8400 or wellsfundinggroup.com. Erik, thank you again. I appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Dennis. Have a
All
great
right.
one.
You too. Bye-bye.